So, just to get us started, can you provide us a bit of background about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Rob McMorran. I'm a researcher, a social researcher in RESAS in the Scottish Government, which is part of the government that basically looks after research, evidence, and analysis relating to sort of rural and environmental areas of interest to policy. And I've been there for about a year and a half, going on 2 years now, I think. And prior to that, I was a researcher in Scotland's Rural College, working mainly in the areas of sort of land use behaviours, and rural development.
In your experience, what motivates policy professionals to engage with researchers?
Yeah, so we've said sort of why researchers want to do it. I suppose again, there's a variety of reasons, and they engage with lots of different types of researchers. And there's researchers in government, so you kind of remember that. It's important to remember that as well. You know, there's this whole mix of different groups of people that you kind of probably label as researchers. There's also economists and there's statisticians and stuff as well, which maybe don't always get labeled as researchers, but it's in the same kind of ballpark of evidence. So it could be on the one end for increasing their general awareness about their policy area, to the other end, which being getting really specific findings to contribute directly to work that's going on developing a policy intervention, for example. So that might be there's work going on emissions targets, on looking at metrics for indicators for biodiversity loss or for a circular economy or whatever. So that's more the kind of direct link into an ongoing or developing policy area. So it's kind of an ongoing process. It's not something that just happens and then it ends. And it's an ongoing process, I think, for policymakers to stay kind of informed on the one level, like I said, to something more specific that relates to like commissioning pieces of work, or also engaging with like longer term research projects, such as, for example, in Scottish Government, we have the Strategic Research Programme, which goes in sort of 5-year cycles. So you have these long 5-year projects. And in RESAS, we sort of look after that, and we act as the kind of overseers of that program, if you like, but also policy teams across Scottish Government will input to that on and off at different levels throughout the sort of program. So the collaboration is kind of there. It's a bit more embedded, So it happens, like I say, it happens at different levels, and it allows policymakers access to evidence. It also allows them access to technical expertise. Allows them to build relationships sometimes with researchers that they might then use to commission a smaller project or do something, in over a short time period of a month or something like that. And it increases their understanding of sort of how things like scenarios or models that can take a long time to develop, the relevance of those to their work. And there's a whole raft of areas in rural and in environmental kind of policy domains now, which are probably even more than in the past, increasingly reliant on research on expanding the evidence base. So whether that's for emissions for the climate change plan, land manager behaviors, natural capital markets, waste, recycling, all these sorts of things require evidence to ensure that the policies that you're developing will have an impact on the ones that you've already got in place to assess how they're sort of doing, how you might want to change them in the future, and so on.
So, from a policy professional's perspective, what does successful engagement with researchers look like?
Yeah, I suppose I should say that I'm not a policy professional, so it's my sort of perspective because I'm working with policy professionals, and like I said, I sort of differentiate us as kind of internal government researchers, I suppose, to the kind of external researchers a little bit. So it varies depending on who they're engaging with and what they see as successful. Is kind of subjective, I suppose, but it could be anything from they have a personal interest or something in your topic area, and they just want to find out a bit more, increase their kind of general awareness and kind of understanding of a topic area, and towards more sort of shaping or maybe influencing the research that you're doing as an external, or really shaping and influencing if they've commissioned the work, so that's a much tighter, kind of closer relationship. And through doing that as well, longer term, I think one of the reasons is to build relationships, like I said before, to kind of build relationships with researchers, because there's always a group or a network around your area. And it's about sort of trying to understand who those people are, what work they're doing, how is it relevant to your policy area, and in the future, how's that going to help you get access to robust evidence, and whether that's, like I said, for really getting at something very specific and a clear data need, or more generally trying to identify factors that influence behavior change because you're trying to change behavior for, circular economy behaviors or whatever, or something around the costs of delivering of land use transformation, peatland restoration, these sorts of things. There's a whole raft of areas, like I say, but really the key thing at the kind of front end is this going to help me get evidence to inform what I'm doing in terms of current and future policy development?